Good morning and welcome to the EPC meeting of our Environmental Protection Commission on May 19. I want to make a little opening comment to let everybody know that we will be holding a rule adoption public hearing regarding revisions to Chapter 5 of the Basis of Review and Chapter 1-6 regarding our fees later in the meeting. So when we open for public comment, we request that anybody who wants to comment to those matters, please reserve your comments until we open that public hearing. And so with that, we'll call the meeting to order and have a Pledge of Allegiance by our chaplain, Commissioner Stacy White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll have a pledge and invocation. I'll ask that everyone please stand at this time. We'll begin with the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide this board, our staff and stakeholders this morning as we seek a delicate balance between things like the agricultural industry and shelter over our heads, with also a clean environment, clean air, clean waterways, healthy wetlands. Also, as always, pray for our first responders and members of our armed forces, that you'll keep them safe each and every day and guide them. And I continue to pray for peace. I ask for these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. And if the clerk will call the roll at this time.
Good morning, Chair Smith.
Here.
Kemp. Hagan.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Overman.
Here.
White.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And Ms. Lorton, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, Commissioner, we do not.
Is there anyone who wants to remove a consent item for question or comment? Seeing none, we will move to recognitions and proclamations. And at this time, I'll ask Ms. Lorton to take us to the recognition of our high school student award winner, Ms. Sushi Patel.
Thank you, Commissioner. And before we start that, just normally I receive an email, just an abundance of caution with HTV on the line. Do we have anybody for public comment? I think we have one individual, but that will be for the basis of review public hearing.
That is correct. We only have one public comment signed up for the public hearing. We have no for general public comment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner. Today we're going to recognize an incredible young woman. EPC staff attends the Hillsborough Regional STEM Fair each year in search of a STEM project that is well designed and aligns with our mission to protect our natural resources and quality of life in Hillsborough County. Today we announce the winner of the 2022 EPC Environmental Merit Award, Sushi Patel. She is accompanied by her father, Yuresh Patel. Sushi is a Middleton High School student in the 10th grade. She states that she considers science to be her sixth sense, and we are glad to hear that, and that the STEM fair allows her to use her scientific passion as a guide to developing solutions that have the potential to change the world. We think she's off to an inspiring start with her winning project entitled Utilizing Microalgae-Free Cells to Combat Dinoflagellate Carenia brevis alga blooms, or red tide. Her findings show a promise for the real-world application, which could change the dynamic of toxic red tide blooms in the Tampa Bay area and elsewhere. As the winner of this year's award, Sushi receives a family pass for 4, which was generously donated by the Florida Aquarium, In addition to the Family Pass, we have an EPC award certificate for Sushi, as well as some other EPC items that we will be forwarding to her following today's meeting. Let me just give you a brief summary of her project. Sushi's research project explored the use of immobilized and free suspended Chlorella vulgaris microalgae cells to remove toxic levels of ammonium and phosphate in synthetic wastewater. Her research supports that the use of microalgae is advantageous to wastewater treatment efficiency and the prevention of severe Karenia brevis outbreaks from nutrient-rich runoff sources. So with that, I would like to invite Sushi and her father to say a few words. Mr. Patel, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm happy that she's getting the award, and yeah, I hope she contributes to the environment and the good cause.
That's awesome. We do too. And Sushi, we have internships. I see you're 16, so you'll be heading off to college, but anytime you want to come to the Environmental Protection Commission, we offer internships as well. So Sushi, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the project?
Sure. So I've always, been interested in the environment and, using science to tackle local problems, using new technology, using biotechnology, using green technology. So I think all of those forms of technology coupled with, my passion for science and then the guidance of my teachers and fellow peers have allowed me to come up with this project that, is showing to be very promising.
That's awesome. Again, very impressive. We had some staff people, even, Dr. Carlin, people who judged your work against other work, and it was amazing. So congratulations. We wish you all the best. And if you ever would love to come and tour or even go out on the water monitoring boat, we will try and make that happen for you. School's getting ready to be out, so you'll have a summer to maybe get those items done. But Mr. Patel, thank you so much for joining us, and Sushi Patel, and look forward to seeing you soon. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
Well, I would like, Commissioner White, you're recognized, I know.
So Sushi, you just finished up you're just finishing up the 10th grade, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I know you still have a couple years of high school left. Have you thought about where you'd like to go to college?
Yeah, I've been definitely exploring my options. I will definitely try applying in-state and out-of-state, and currently, my dream school's Ivy League, but with the financial resources that the state provides, I think I'll be heading somewhere like UF or USF in the next few years.
Very good. Have you thought about whether or not you want to do anything beyond the undergraduate level?
Oh, definitely. I think I'll be in school for quite a while. I definitely want to pursue grad school and then, maybe get a master's or even a PhD of some sort, in the future.
I suspected that we probably have a future PhD in front of us. So all the best to you, and in a decade or more, when you earn that PhD, make sure you send your CV in to the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities for you.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
Yes, and I would just like to say on behalf of the board, we're very proud of you and pleased that you came here today to inform us a little bit about your project. We are very excited, I'm sure all of us are, that you are looking at ways to combat Karenia brevis. That's our red tide algae, and we've been very, very concerned about red tide in Tampa Bay. So this is yours is a project that could go on to have big impact, helping us all fight that scourge that we have such trouble with right here in Tampa Bay. And so I'm very happy that you chose that particular project, and hope that you continue to work in ways that benefit the planet and our community, and I wish you well on behalf of the whole board of the EPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Sushi, we'd like you to recognize your teacher who probably helped and motivated and mentored you. Could you let us know her name or his name?
Yeah, so I've actually had two teachers that have, been the guiding light in my entire project. So first of all, the STEM fair coordinator at my school, Ms. Bhagdashri Kulkarni. She was really, her guidance and motivation really kept me going. And then my supervisor for my project itself, she holds a marine biology degree, so she was, one of the most ideal candidates to help supervise my project in her lab. And her name is Miss Patricia Dodson. She's the biotechnology lead at Middleton High School, and I'm very grateful for her.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the teachers if they're watching. And Sushi, we're going to be honoring some people, and we'll be honoring an individual today, Mr. Tom Ash, who has a long career with the EPC, and he headed up the environmental resources team for our water division. So if you want to stay on, we have 3 recognitions, but we'll also have the head of the estuary program, Mr. Ed Sherwood. He'll be on as well. And obviously, Commissioner White heads up the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board and is a Gator, so was happy to hear that University of Florida is on your list. So thank you so much. And again, we'll see you in the near future to get you your passes and your EPC certificate. And best of luck. I agree. We're going to see another PhD. I guarantee I'm going to read about you in the newspaper. You're going to do great things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patel.
All right, and that takes us to the recognitions and farewells part of the agenda. My goodness, we have 3 of them this morning.
We do.
So I'll hand that back to you, Ms. Lawrenson.
Thank you, thank you. We do, unfortunately. But unfortunately for them, every life is a journey. And so our first recipient is Ms. Sheila Luce, and she has been with our agency in the waste division for 33 years. And I just want to thank her. She's a very dedicated employee. I don't know what it was, but during the pandemic, Sheila is the person I would always bump into, like we were in the office together. And so the one thing I always think about Sheila when I would enter into the waste division is there was always laughter there. And Sheila would be at the center of it. And I'm not really sure what all those jokes were about, but she's just a kind, sweet, and funny person. I'm going to we have her waste director, Stephanie Wickham, who will be introducing her and giving her lifetime recognition. But we also have our past director, Hushang Bustani, who is in the Blue Ridge Mountains, but can be with us virtually as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Janet. That was a wonderful introduction of Sheila. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Stephanie Wickham, EPC staff. I'm here today to recognize Sheila Luce, who's a 33-year veteran of the EPC and is retiring in July of this year. Sheila is originally a native of New Ulm, Minnesota, born and raised a Midwesterner who moved to the Tampa Bay area in the late 80s. Sheila started her career with the EPC on November 16, 1987, as an environmental specialist in the Air Division. She was initially hired because of the SARA Title III Community Right to Know Act and was an inaugural member of the local emergency planning committee. During her tenure in the Air Division, Sheila reviewed toxic emissions on air permits, did toxic air inventory inspections, was the agency indoor air contact for air pollution, and worked in asbestos abatement, including reviewing school asbestos abatement plans under an EPA grant for the Hillsborough County. Her tenure in the Air Division lasted until 1992. And for the last almost 30 years, Sheila has been part of the Waste Division family. For several years, she was in the enforcement department and focused on petroleum tanks and cleanup cases, although she also managed some solid and hazardous waste cases as well. About 10 years ago, Sheila transferred to the cleanup department as a site manager to focus on the technical management of sites and enforcement. She frequently works closely with our legal department to work out solutions for these cases. Her retirement will leave a large void of expertise in this area, as these sites are often quite complicated and are not usually easy to close. Recently, in addition to her site management, Sheila has stepped up for us during the COVID pandemic to be the department's primary field person. She has always been an active member of several agency committees, including the Employee Development Committee, and she consistently represents the agency in outreach events such as Science Fair, working at the Engineering Expo, and organizing Bring Your Child to Work Day. Sheila is one of those employees that is always willing to assist her team whenever she's needed, and that is something that we're greatly going to miss about her. On a personal note, Sheila is a loyal friend that is well known across the agency for her love of children and animals. She is always someone to assist in a stray animal rescue, welcome a new baby, or be there for a friend in need. She is a loyal friend that is fun, supportive, and empathetic to everyone around her. I know that she will remain a lifetime friend to many of her coworkers, including myself. Her family is the center of her world, and we have had the pleasure of watching Sheila and her husband raise her 2 children through the years. Both of her daughters, Jenny and Michelle, are now all grown up and married themselves, living in the Tampa Bay area. We are happy for Sheila that she will now have more time to spend with them both, as well as her husband, Steve, and her 2 cats, Clarence and Betty. So at this time, I would like to present Sheila's Lifetime Achievement Award. The Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Sheila Luce in recognition of a lifetime of dedicated service and your 33-year commitment to protecting natural resources for the citizens of Hillsborough County. Best wishes, EPC, May 19th, 2022. So commissioners, at this time, we do have a guest that would like to say a few words, the former director of the Waste Division, Mr. Husheng Bustani, who worked with Sheila for many, many years. Husheng, I'll turn it over to you.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you see me?
We can see you.
Well, good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Janet, my fellow EPC employees, and the viewing audience. First of all, let me go ahead and crumble my speech. Everything that I was going to say, maybe 95% of it was just covered by Janet and Steffi. But I did have the privilege and pleasure of working with Sheila. I do have my dog standing next to me here too, and he's being kind of impatient. But, you know, having worked with Sheila for almost 30 years, first and foremost, I thought she was a fantastic public servant. As a matter of fact, she left EPC halfway through her career, but that lasted a couple of years, and she came right back because public service is what she loved to do. She loved EPC. She was an active participant in all our social events. She's someone that worked hard to nurture and perpetuate that family culture that EPC is known for. And we were all lucky to meet her, to work with her. And for myself, I consider myself very fortunate to call Sheila and her husband Steve and their daughters our family friends. And to Sheila, I want to say that now that you have decided to embark on your new chapter in the long journey that you have had, I want to wish you Godspeed. Please enjoy your retirement. And if you decide to, we are always welcome to join Jerry Campbell's alumni group. So thank you for everything. Thank you for your friendship, and God bless you.
Thank you, Husheng. Husheng retired, and that is his Blue Ridge Mountain cabin that he's at right now. So there's Hubu.
Janet, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a couple of words about my other friends who will be retiring. Paula
Absolutely,
Noblet.
Hushang. Try and hold the camera in front of your face, though, because we're seeing a lot of your ear. Perfect. Good job. Well, maybe not. Come back a little bit. There, perfect. Right there.
I'm sure the recognition is coming up, but I'll be taking off in a couple of minutes. But I did want to say that these are two folks that were a tremendous asset to the agency. And I had the privilege of knowing both of them for as long as they have been with EPC. So Paula, Tom, thank you for everything. I salute you for your exceptional service to the citizens of Hillsborough County. And I wish you Godspeed.
Awesome.
Thank you all for this week.
Thank you, Hushang. Good to see you.
Good seeing all of you.
Awesome. So, Stephanie, am I turning it back over to you, or are we turning it over to Sheila?
I think we were going to see if Sheila had anything to say.
Okay. Hey, Sheila.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. I want to thank you for all the comments that were just said, that they were amazing. I'd also like to thank you for allowing me to work for the citizens of Hillsborough County. It was very rewarding, pleasurable, and I was truly honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. And Sheila picked out her picture for her Lifetime Achievement Award. We love you dearly. Tell Steve hello. Many of you probably recognize that name, Steve Luce. He was a land use hearing officer. And best of luck in your retirement. And we know we'll see, hopefully we'll see you, and we know we will. But at our Thanksgiving luncheons, or maybe just get together for lunch with Nicole and Stephanie. But we wish you the best, and thank you for your service. You were very, very dedicated, and I wish you the best in retirement.
And I will just add, as from the board, that we wish you well and congratulate you on a stellar career of 33 years of serving our EPC in this important capacity of the Waste Division. There is a lot involved in that, from people disposing of things in one way or another that is has potential to impact our environment, and we're very lucky to have really good people regulating that in our county. And I know the whole board and the county is grateful for your long service with conscientiousness and integrity in protecting our natural resources in the Waste Division. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And with that, we'll move. We have another, like I said, we have three. The second individual who has actually retired on April 29th, is Paula Noblet. And I'm going to let Sam introduce Paula and talk about Paula, but she was with our agency for 20 years, but was with the DEP. This was the picture she picked for her Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a coyote. It's a beautiful picture. I'm sure somebody at the agency probably took that picture. But one of the things that you may not know about Paula, and everybody said this at her retirement, was they all want to commission artwork from her. And I have a piece of artwork from her that hangs in my office that she created with our mission, vision, and value colors at the agency. And we have several pieces of artwork from her in our agency. But Paula's just such a wonderful person, easy to talk to. But one of the things I loved about when we were doing her retirement is many of the new people felt so welcomed, because she was just an ambassador and walk up and say, do you need some help? Can I help you? I'm glad you're here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sam El-Rabi.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sam El-Rabi, EPC staff. It is my pleasure to recognize Paula Noblet, who retired 3 weeks ago. after 37 years of distinguished public service. She was a public servant at the state level at FDEP for 17 years, and then joined EPC, continuing the good environmental protection work, and stayed with us here as an EPC family member for 20 years, serving the citizens of Hillsborough County. In her 20 years of service at EPC, Paula Noblet also served as an environmental engineer, doing field compliance inspection of industrial facilities and phosphate facilities and port industrial facilities. She also served as the EPC Water Division Manager for compliance and enforcement. She also was the liaison with the state FDEP on water compliance, enforcement, and compliance assistance and delegated programs, and finished here at EPC as a senior environmental manager and an assistant director of EPC's water division. Also in the 20 years of EPC service, Paula Noblet has served as the chair of the agency's benchmarking committee for the Governor Sterling Award application. She was the chair of the agency's complaint and warning notice committee, which is pretty difficult task to do agency-wide. She was the agency liaison between us and the Department of Health and was responsible for the MOU between us and the Department of Health, delineating responsibilities and work so we don't step on each other's toes and we can be more efficient handling environmental protections for the citizens. Also, Paula had served on the agency's Performance Measures Committee, Database User Group, the CEMP, the County Emergency Management Plan Committee, and multiple other committees. She was extremely talented, exceptionally competent, and willing to help and assist in any which way she can, agency-wide. Commissioners, Paula Noblet has been an outstanding public servant for 37 years. She has been an asset to our agency, who served with dedication and professionalism, and we already miss her. It's only been 3 weeks and we already miss Paula. There's not a single day passes without me calling her. I am honored today to present Paula Noblet with the Lifetime Achievement Award and the inscription. Do we have that photo, the slide? I don't see it if we have it flashed.
It was just up, but they'll put it up right now. There it is. We have it up.
Great. Like I said, I'm honored today to present Paula with the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it reads, in recognition of a lifetime of dedicated service and your 20 years commitment to protecting natural resources for the citizens of Hillsborough County. Best wishes, EPC, May 19, 2022. Paula is a great family person, and we wish her the best of luck with her husband, Brad, and the two lovely daughters, Jessica, who's finishing her PhD at FSU in Tallahassee, and Sarah, who graduated from USF and gainfully employed and off the parents' checkbook. So, Paula, happy retirement, my friend.
Thank you, Sam. Paula, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say it has been my honor and pleasure to serve the EPC and the board, and I can't believe how quickly the last 20 years EPC has gone by. And this has been hinted at in several things, in several speeches and everything, but there is this kinship at EPC with everyone striving to do what is right and uphold our mission, vision, and values. I know that sounds cliche, but it's really true for EPC. Working for EPC has been a great experience for me. It shaped me in many different ways. And it's a great agency to work for. And I thank you for the recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And Sam's right. We do miss you. I'm glad you're still on speed dial. That's wonderful. And we do wish you the best. And when you get, I know I'm on that list for a commissioned piece of artwork. So whenever you get around to it, give me a call. But we will do lunch in the near future, and again, wish you all the best.
Yes, and I will just say from the board, congratulations on this award, this well-earned award, and thank you for your 20 years of service. As Ms. Noblet alluded to, the culture at our Environmental Protection Commission of people working hard for over long periods of time to protect our environment with a passion for doing what's right every day. I know her service has exemplified that, and I hope there comes a time in her retirement where she's not getting called every day.
I think he's just calling to say hello.
But
he does miss her.
You know, I know too that our Environmental Protection Commission has this really marvelous alumni group.
We do.
Because we have so much institutional knowledge that has been built up in this agency, and as people retire, their passion drives them to stay engaged, and that's just another incredible resource that I know we're all very grateful for, and hope you continue staying in touch, Ms. Noblet. But I do wish you, and I know we all wish you, a wonderful retirement, and best wishes in your next chapter.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And our third retiree, who will be retiring May 31st, is Tom Ash. And one thing I'd like to say, if we could bring up his picture briefly, just real quick. The EPC bird, this is our bird on the website. This has been given on other awards. This picture was taken by Tom Ash. And I watched a video yesterday of the Artificial Reef Program with Roger Stewart, and it was 6 minutes long, and I'd be happy to send it on to you in a link. Wow. Tom was the one who fought to create all of our artificial reef programs, which are fabulous. And he also fought very hard to make the program the state of the art for water monitoring. Okay, we have the longest continuing data set in the country for water monitoring. And when Piney Point happened, we had just sampled the day before, but it's those data sets that let you know how you're doing, what the health of the bay is. Tom is just such a funny person, and if I could tell you, he teases a lot. And so we'll be having a retirement today, and I think there'll be a little roasting right back to him. But Tom, we love you dearly, and he has a wife, Jan, and 2 beautiful little pugs. And he's got a boat and an RV, and he's ready for retirement. So with that, we have several people that want to speak before I turn it over to his director, Sam Arabi. I know Commissioner Stacy White wanted to have some remarks and confer proclamation to him. And also we have Mr. Sherwood on. So Mr. White, Commissioner White?
Yeah, I had thought I was on after Sam. Sam, are you okay if I go first?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Well, Commissioners, as you all know, I represent this board on the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board. So I have a proclamation today from the Tampa Bay Estuary Program that I'd like to read into the record. Before I do that, though, I just want to say that I've had the chance to work with Tom closely over the years on a number of things. In my role on the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board, I've also been out on the boat with Tom and crew for some of the water sampling. That was just an incredible experience. Tom is just a genuinely great guy. He's not only a gifted scientist and a professional asset to this organization, but just a genuinely good human being as well. So, Tom, I just wanted to say that, and congratulations on your well-earned retirement. And without further ado, I'll read this proclamation from the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. It reads, whereas Thomas Ash has been an esteemed environmental resources manager in Tampa Bay for over 35 years. Whereas Tom oversaw the processing of over 58,000 water quality samples and 5,300 benthic samples. Whereas Tom contributed to the deployment of over 42,000 tons of artificial reef material covering over 125 acres. Whereas the EPC's Water Division responded to over 15,000 citizen complaints under Tom's leadership. Whereas Tom served as the chair of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program's Management Board and has been an integral part of the program's Technical Advisory Committee. Whereas Tom served as the chair of the Agency on Bay Management, Natural Resources, Environmental Impact Review Committee, and had the ability to bring together environmental stewards for the betterment of the Bay. Whereas Tom's passion for protecting Tampa Bay has left an impression on all that knew him. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Tampa Bay Estuary Program that Tom Ash is designated a champion of Tampa Bay. And Tom, this is signed by our esteemed CEO of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, Ed Sherwood. It's my pleasure to present this to you. You will be receiving a hard copy of this proclamation. Again, congratulations, and I just wish you all the best in the next chapters. And with that being said, I believe we have Ed Sherwood here with us today, and he'd like to make a few remarks.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner White, and other fellow commissioners, as well as Director Lorton. Following up on what Commissioner White just said for Tom, I just wanted to express my appreciation and thanks for all of Tom's service to our program and the region at large. I actually have had the pleasure to work alongside Tom when I was an employee at the EPC's Environmental Resource Management Division, and his influence there, as well as beyond the EPC, has been an asset to our region and water quality resources represented in the Tampa Bay Estuary and the Hillsborough County portion of our watershed. His input and influence reach far beyond the EPC, though, as was expressed by Commissioner White. He has served as a dedicated management board chair for the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, as well as the chair of the Natural Resources Environmental Impact Review Committee under the Agency on Bay Management. I've personally appreciated Tom's candor and oftentimes humor in approaching very complicated and challenging environmental issues. As Director Lorton expressed, we had some challenges last year with Piney Point, and really the region stepped up to respond to that discharge to Tampa Bay and the water quality impacts that occurred after that. And in Tom's leadership at EPC and additional water quality collection effort that was expanded during that response is certainly an exemplary show of his leadership of being able to be a team player within the region and really address some of the challenges that we face and continue to face to protect the Tampa Bay Estuary's natural resources. So Tom, I am honored and very happy to designate to you champion of Tampa Bay on behalf of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program and our board, and have the utmost respect for everything that you've been able to accomplish through your 35-year career in the region. And we will be providing this proclamation at the management board meeting tomorrow, of which you chair, and we'll be providing an additional gift. So I want to thank you again, and I appreciate everything you have done for the region. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Those were some great remarks, and we'll see you tomorrow at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program meeting. And it's not lost on me that we have our own Tom, who's a champion of Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's got nothing on Tom Ash, I can tell you that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. El Rabi so he can kind of go through his career and say some remarks about how wonderful Tom is.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, Sam El Rabi, EPC staff. And I would like to thank Commissioner White and Ed Sherwood for their comments and compliments. And I may be repeating, there is some overlap with my comments here, so please bear with me. It is my pleasure to recognize Tom Ash again on behalf of the agency who's retiring after over 35 years of distinguished service to our citizens here in Hillsborough County and in the Tampa Bay area at large. Tom Ash is an Assistant Director of EPC's Water Division. He has been with us, like I said, over 35 years, and he served as an entry-level environmental scientist. That's where he started, doing water quality monitoring in Tampa Bay and in all the tributaries that feed Tampa Bay. Then he was the coordinator of EPC's Artificial Reef Program, responsible for creating 125 acres of hard bottom of all 8 artificial reefs in Tampa Bay. Tom also managed the Pollution Recovery Fund, which has dispensed over $8 million for environmental projects and restoration within Hillsborough County since its inception. Tom also was the general manager of the Environmental Resource Management Department, managing and overseeing all the agency's water quality monitoring network. That network has continuously monitored Tampa Bay and its tributaries since the early 70s, and it's the longest continuous monitoring program in the nation, bar none. As well as the startup and continuing its benthic monitoring program that has began in 1993, processing over 5,300 samples. Tom currently serves as the chair of the Tampa Bay Estuary Programs Management Board, which is going to be meeting tomorrow. He's the chair of the Agency on Bay Management's Natural Resources Environmental Impact Review Committee and member of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Technical Advisory Committee and Nitrogen Management Consortium. Tom also is the former president of FLERA, the Florida Local Environmental Resource Agencies, and he served with distinction in there too, known statewide for his environmental work. Commissioners, Tom has been a real asset and an outstanding public servant for all these years and decades. He served the agency with integrity and professionalism and dedication and served the citizens of our county extremely well. And we will miss him. I have not started the phone calls for him, but as of June 1st, the calls daily will start. And I am honored today to present Tom with the Lifetime Achievement Award, and that award reads, in recognition of your lifetime of dedicated service to protecting Tampa Bay and its natural resources for the citizens of Hillsborough County. Best wishes, EPC, May 19, 2022. Happy retirement, Tom, and all best of luck to you and Jan in this beautiful journey and new chapter you're starting by the end of this month.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Tom, go ahead. I just wanted to say thank you to Sam, and also wanted to mention to the board members that his wife retired a couple years before him. They bought a beautiful home in Pinellas County, right on the water. They were on the water before, but she was very successful, and she was an environmental consultant as well, an engineer, and so we wish both Tom and Jan the best. But Tom, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just wanted to let everyone know that Jan was also in the environmental field too. So go ahead, Sam. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Janet, and Sam and everyone else. Very overwhelming. You know, my career started in 1987, January of 1987, and the Bay was a very different thing then, and the environment of Hillsborough County was very different then. And here we are 35 years later, and I hope I had, at least in some small way, something to do with that. So thank you, Ed. Thank you, Commissioner White, and all the other commissioners. And I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And it's overwhelming for us too. So, you know, we'll give you a hug when we see you tomorrow. And again, you didn't make a little difference. You made a huge difference. And as I said before, Tom Brady's got nothing on you. You've done a lot for the Bay, the artificial reefs, the quality of the Bay, and the monitoring. And I do want to thank both you and Paula. You've done a great job with mentoring your staff. And, you know, I will let everyone know that Daniel Moore is following in Paula Noblet's position. We've hired somebody internally. He's an amazing scientist. And Tom did a great job also with the staff, and we have hired Chris Pratt. And so your legacy lives on, Tom, in those that you've mentored. But I know we'll be seeing you around. I know you're going to jump in that RV with Fred, and it's not Fred, Greg and Wilma, his two pugs, and Jan, and head out west at some point. But anyway, we love you very much, and it is overwhelming. And don't cry, because you're going to make me cry.
I actually did forget to do one thing, and I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to say, for one last time, good morning, Commissioners. Tom Ash, EPC staff.
Good morning, Mr. Ash. And I've worked with Tom in several levels of citizen engagement before I got to this position. So when I was for years on the Citizen Environmental CIAC Advisory Board to the EPC, we got to work closely on several issues there that were going on, but particularly his oversight of the Pollution Recovery Fund really helped us to be able to spend those dollars and sort through the some very good applications to pick out the best ways, most effective ways to spend those Pollution Recovery Fund dollars on extraordinary projects that would really benefit our environment and our bay. And I certainly concur with Commissioner White's comments about the additional factor of what a great person Mr. Ash is, and that combined with his leadership skills and has helped him to be effective over these 35 years. But importantly, he has carried out all his duties of protecting our natural resources within the agency, at the ABM, where I served before Commissioner Cohen went, the Agency on Bay Management at Tampa Bay Estuary Program, working with the public. He carries out those duties of protecting our natural resources with a genuine, heartfelt care for our environment, while always being professionally careful to stick with the facts and the data. I'm seeing a lot of head nodding here, Tom, all of which really contributed to the credibility of this agency in some, great steps forward and some tricky, controversial spots. To have that combination of a clear explanation to the public based on a deep knowledge and understanding of the facts and the data has been of paramount importance in serving this agency. I will also agree with Ms. Lorton that he's an excellent photographer, and in fact, I kept some of his photos that he did for an EPC annual report that I helped out with in my past life, and one of them is a nudibranch. Do you know what those are? I didn't even know those were in the bay. It's a wild little animal that he had a picture of that's out there by E.G. Simmons. He must have taken it diving. So yes, he does have an intimate knowledge that I hope he's passed on to the people following him of our bay in particular, and the long time database that he's amassed about red tide, algae blooms, everything, the seagrasses and everything that's going on in our bay. So, Mr. Ash, please call me anytime as your commissioner if you have any suggestions or ideas as you're traveling around in your RV, something occurs to you that I could help out with in any way, your perspective and advice would always go a long way with me. And I wish you well in your retirement, and I know we all do. And Commissioner Cohen would like to add something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention that, it shouldn't be lost on any of us that all three of the people that are retiring today have enormously long tenures with the agency. And I think it speaks not only well to the culture of the agency, but what really shines through is how much everyone cares about the work that they're doing. And nothing is going to make our environmental stewardship more successful than the passion of the people who are charged with both enforcing and regulating our policies. And I think we all think it's just wonderful that people are willing to devote their whole lives to, their whole professional lives to protecting our environment. So thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Absolutely, well said. And I think that wraps up this heart-tugging farewell session of the Environmental Protection Commission meeting for today. And we'll move on to check one more time to see if there's anyone available for public comment.
There is no one signed up for general public comment today.
Thank you. And outside of the public hearing, which will come later, and that takes us to approval of the consent agenda.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Cohen, second by Commissioner Myers. We'll have to take a roll call vote because this is a hybrid meeting.
Chair Smith,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 6-0.
All right, and now we'll move to the public hearing. And at this time, we'll open the public hearing to consider amendments to Chapter 5 of the Basis of Review and Chapter 1-6. And Mr. Marati, our EPC legal counsel, will explain the process and advise us about the noticing of the hearing.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Yes, the public hearing pursuant to Section 5 of the Hillsborough County Environmental Protection Act has been noticed in the newspaper May 4th in the Tampa Bay Times, because any rulemaking that the commission must do, whether it's an amendment or a new rule, has to be noticed for a public hearing. And also, while not required by law, we also reach out to citizens through large email outreach, put it on our website, and we've had workshops. So the general format of today's rulemaking proceeding is that wetland staff, Kim Tapley, a senior manager, will present the summary of the rule, and you can ask questions obviously at any time. And then we'll receive public comment, and then the commissioners can have a discussion and a vote. And I'd just like to add that Commissioner Smith had given us a really good suggestion for the rule to be improve noticing when governments are applying herbicides to water bodies. So we actually were able to make that small change to our rule before it even got to the agenda packet. So there's nothing, and there's no addendum to the agenda packet. Already got it in there. It's already been on our website. And so that will be discussed by Ms. Tapley also. So at this point, unless you have any questions about the process, I'd turn it over to Kim Tapley in the Wetlands Division.
That's fine. So Ms. Tapley.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kim Tapley, and I'm a permitting manager in the Wetlands Division. And I am going to share my screen for a brief presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Today I'll be giving a presentation on the proposed rule revisions to Chapter 5 of the Basis of Review and Chapter 1-6 Rules of the EPC. As you know, the Basis of Review was adopted in 2008, and the Commission adopted amendments to Chapter 5 of the Basis of Review this time last year. Since the application of the 2021 amended rule language, EPC has received feedback from the regulated community and other stakeholders regarding the interpretation of the language and how to clarify the criteria for better application activities commonly reviewed. This is a testament to how EPC is coming together with stakeholders to constantly pursue solutions for projects. Miscellaneous activities and wetlands review criteria is located in Chapter 5 and are projects that are of nominal consequence to the wetland and therefore do not require wetland impact reviews, nor do they require mitigation. As a reminder, if the project does not qualify for the MAIW, then the applicant may still apply for a wetland impact review with mitigation. The whole lake treatment section title was revised to Aquatic Plant Control to better represent the activity of this section, and because these control activities are not limited to lakes, but also apply to other water bodies such as ponds and rivers. We revised the noticed exemption section to include native and non-native species of algae and identified that a noticed exemption remains effective for 3 years so long as the activity and location remains the same. Additionally, we proposed amended noticing requirements for federal, state, and local government applicants. First, when there are no water use restrictions for an herbicide treatment, the government applicant is not required to notice the permit to owners of the submerged lands and owners of the adjacent upland property. However, if there are water use restrictions for the proposed herbicide treatment, the government applicant must inform citizens by at least 2 of the following methods: correspondence, newspaper publication, or website posting. Regardless of whether there are water use restrictions, there is still a requirement of the applicant to post signage of the herbicide treatment at common access points. As a reminder, the aquatic plant control section applies to submerged and floating leaf plants and does not include shoreline or littoral vegetation removal. Tussocks are defined as floating mats of vegetation that float freely in a water body and are not rooted in the substrate of the water body. After the implementation of the new whole lake treatment section, we identified that these floating tussocks did not fit under either aquatic plant control because they are not composed of the appropriate vegetation type, nor do they qualify for shoreline nuisance vegetation control because they are not rooted along a shoreline. Utilizing certain criteria from both sections and incorporating criteria regularly included in prior MAIW authorizations, a new section for floating tussock removal is proposed. The MAIW for the removal of tussocks is required when the tussock is composed of predominantly native wetland vegetation. For tussocks that are composed of predominantly non-native vegetation, a new exemption under the exempt activities section is created and will be featured later on in this presentation. The fence section clarifies the language identifying the fence materials that are appropriate in wetlands. This proposed revision is consistent with the application of the May 2021 rule amendment that privacy fences are not permitted in wetlands. The rule language was also updated to clarify that all fence material types must be elevated off the substrate to the ordinary high water line. In the photo on the right, you can see a barbed wire fence in the wetland that allows the water to flow freely. The marginal structure section was adopted in May of 2021. Since its adoption, many contractors and other stakeholders have provided feedback to improve the rule's application and clarify the criteria. Previously, the language required a marginal structure to be a simple rectangle, like you see in the photo on the top right. Stakeholders identified this requirement posed difficulties when the shoreline was irregular and limited the different marginal structure designs that met all the other criteria. With this proposed revision, the 2 configurations depicted at the bottom of the screen meet the revised definition of a marginal structure. Additional revisions combine multiple criteria which address locating a marginal structure in the swim and open water access area. Lastly, the exception language was revised to correctly reflect that other artificially created residential canals with no vegetation or no significant benthic resources have the same exceptions to the rule as Port Tampa Bay jurisdictional areas. Based on stakeholder feedback and support from the Commission, we reorganized a subsection now titled Native-Based Solutions that includes native shorelines, which is an existing activity type, and native shorelines with minimum shoreline hardening, which is a new activity type. These revisions were made to identify criteria such as activities including the use of breakwaters and soil confinement technology, commonly known as GeoWeb. These materials are often necessary to enhance the survivability of vegetation and to protect them from wave action. EPC received feedback from Ecosphere Restoration Institute on the technical criteria of this new subsection. The main purpose of creating this additional shoreline activity is to encourage native shoreline enhancement activities along natural water bodies such as the Hillsborough River. A 50% fee reduction for activities under native-based solutions is proposed to encourage and incentivize property owners to consider this method of shoreline stabilization over riprap or seawalls. In the 2021 rule amendments, EPC created the exempt activities section, which identified activities that are of nominal consequence to the wetland and require little review or have little potential environmental impacts. To address feedback from the regulated community, one exemption has been expanded and another one created. First, exemption number 6 encourages the planting of native vegetation as a shoreline stabilization method. However, feedback was received that native plantings require support to enhance the survivability of that vegetation. Thus, the use of fiber logs has been added to the existing native plantings exemption. To correspond with the new MIAW section for the removal of floating tussocks composed of predominantly native vegetation, a new exemption was added for the removal of tussocks which are composed of predominantly non-native vegetation with similar criteria. As a reminder, these exemptions may still require a separate Port Tampa Bay authorization depending on their location within the county. At this point, we have concluded the overview of amendments proposed for the basis of review Chapter 5. Now I'd like to briefly identify two main changes to Chapter 1-6, the fee schedule. The revision of Chapter 1-6 is isolated to Section 1-6.05, which is the Wetland Fees. The proposed amendments are as follows. First, to make the fee schedule consistent with the BOR proposed amendments, the fee title for whole lake treatment is revised to Aquatic Plant Control. Additionally, because aquatic plant control applies to more than lakes, the size description was revised to water bodies. Second, because EPC encourages native plantings and natural shoreline stabilization measures, a 50% reduced fee is proposed for those environmentally beneficial activities that fall under the new native-based solution subsection. This fee reduction applies to MIAW authorizations and minor work permits under EPC's delegation from Port. Please be advised that if a native-based solution activity includes another activity under the same review, the higher fee shall apply. For example, if both a dock and a native-based solution activity are applied for under the same application, the traditional MIAW fee of $380 would apply. In conclusion, the revised rule language is to address the feedback from the regulated community and other stakeholders and clarify the application of certain criteria. These rule amendments clarify ongoing practices to afford the applicant a better understanding of the rule criteria, saving time, and increasing permitting efficiency. The increased specificity improves and streamlines the process so that the project submittals will have more detailed guidance on what activities qualify for an MIW permit or an exemption. If the project does not qualify for the MIW, then the applicant may still apply for a wetland impact review with mitigation. That review criteria is located in Chapter 3 of the basis of review. And again, as a reminder, Port Tampa Bay submerged land management rules are still applicable and may be more stringent than the criteria contained in the basis of review. So at this time, the staff recommendation is to adopt the proposed rule amendments to Chapter 5 of the basis of review and associated amendments to Chapter 1-6 that are included in the agenda, and to authorize staff to correct any non-substantive typographical errors.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll open up for public comment. I understand we have one person signed up for public comment, Mr. Tom Reese. If you're there, you're recognized.
Tom, are
Good
you
morning,
there?
Madam Chair and Commissioners. Can you
Go
hear
ahead,
me?
Tom.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tom Reese. I'm president of Ecosphere Restoration Institute, a nonprofit organization that promotes public-private partnerships. I'm here today in support of EPC's basis of review, Chapter 5, Wetlands Rule Change to allow, in fact, encourage nature-based shoreline solutions. This new rule change will make it easier for waterfront homeowners to stabilize their shorelines with living shoreline options, as these rules mimic the state and federal exemptions for living shorelines. Also, the proposed 50% reduction in the fee is a great step to further incentivize homeowners to select nature-based solutions over seawalls. This form of incentivization is used in other parts of the country. In fact, some states waive the fee completely. Again, thanks for streamlining your rules to make it easier for folks to stabilize their shorelines with nature-based solutions, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
And thank you, Mr. Reese, for contributing your expertise to the work that went into this rule change. I was involved in a meeting with you about the need for this, and you know, I just think it's been a really great opportunity to really refine this rule in ways that will help people use natural living shorelines in new ways that we now understand are possible besides the old way of riprap or you know, mangroves or whatever, to really make them work. And you know, I guess before we well, let's see if we have a board motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Motion to approve by Commissioner Myers, second by, was it Commissioner Cohen? And I'll ask for board discussion. And seeing none, I will just add that this is a really good example, commissioners, of how we make a rule change. We made this a rule change, you know, a year ago, less than a year ago.
Correct.
And sometimes there's this, we can be paralyzed by this fear of unintended consequences, or whether we should take a little more time and make sure it's perfect. And that can happen with these rule changes as well as changes we're looking at for our land development code or any other comp plan change or anything. And this is a good example of how, look, we make the change and then we see how it works. We get feedback from the regulated community. And in fact, the regulated community helps us to actually improve the protections to the environment, and we come right back and tweak it and refine it and make it even better. So I just think it's a perfect example of the regulatory agency, our legislative responsibilities, working with the regulated community and the stakeholders to continue to refine our rules to best protect our environment. And glad I could help with a little bit extra tweaking at the last minute with our noticing to really make sure that the public is being noticed. In a way, we can always go back and change that if we need to. So seeing any further comments from Ms. Lorton or Mr. Marotti?
Just to thank the EPC staff that were involved, Attorney Beth Lee, Attorney Andy Zadro, Kim Tapley, Christina Bryan, and a whole host of others, Dessa Clock in Wetlands. Thank you, and Commissioner Smith for your insight and good suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, and I'd like to thank staff as well, and I'd also, since we're in this public hearing, you know, Commissioner Cohen, you're on the port board, and I think Ecosphere and Mr. Reese could maybe use some assistance in getting this done on the other side. Obviously, we have delegation from the port, and I know he's been reaching out, but if you don't mind, I'd like to give you a number, and maybe you or your staff could help assist him with the port.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right. And seeing no further comments in the room or online, we'll ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Chair Smith?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Overman?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you. And we'll go now to the regular agenda, starting with the noise program overview.
Thank you, Commissioner. This was the request from Commissioner Hagan's office, but many commissioners have talked about, we get a lot of calls for noise, emails for noise. It can be from some things that are exempt, you know, from agritourism or airboats or motor vehicles. But we wanted the public to understand what our role is. You know, obviously a lot of noisy places or bars. And so we're bringing this forward so that the public can understand what EPC's noise rule is and what we are allowed to regulate. So with that, I'm going to introduce Jeff Sims.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Sims with EPC staff. HTV, if you could please queue up the presentation. All right, thank you very much. So as Janet mentioned, we're here to provide an overview of the EPC noise program, which is run out of the air division of EPC. Next slide, please. The legislative act that created EPC also allows for the authority to adopt rules specific to regulating and controlling activities that cause excessive or unnecessary noise in the county. And that rule is Chapter 1-10. It was originally adopted in 1976 and has been periodically updated and had the most significant overhaul around 2008 in response to the Ford Amphitheater. And it has, we have authority throughout Hillsborough County and within the three municipalities of Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace. Next slide, please. So a few comments on the dynamics of the rule. It is a complaint-driven rule. We don't drive around looking for sources of noise. We are, you know, most commonly comes in as complaints. It is the most common type of complaint received by our agency. We responded to well over 300 complaints last year related to noise. Something very important to note on our rule is that it's based on distinct limits in decibels. It is not perception-based, and that means that it's not the opinion of our staff as to its level of annoyance or nuisance, which can vary from person to person, which is often the case with some of the local ordinances, as we'll see at the end of this presentation. We tried to keep ours as much science-based as possible. And one other note is that our rule is based on the receiving property, not the source. Some of the local ordinances are based on the source. We actually measure from the complainant's property. Next slide, please. So this one breaks down the limits that we implement. there are two different sets of standards. The first limit, shown on the left, establishes across the normal bandwidth for human hearing, which is called the A-weighted scale. We only showed residential because we're trying to keep the slide from looking too busy, but there are also standards for commercial and industrial, but residential is the most common type of complaint we receive. The second set of limits are the octave bands, targeting the lower frequencies, where there tend to be more pervasive impacts. This would be the base frequencies, which you might compare to the thumping sounds that you might hear, and they tend to carry further based on the dynamics of sound. You'll note that there's more restrictive standards during the nighttime hours after 11 p.m., and the rule is based on a 10-minute average. So the individual spikes are averaged out. The monitoring device and software that we use must be capable of performing this averaging across all of the noise bands in the rule. So as such, it requires a very specialized meter. It must be a type 2 meter or better per the rule, with the capabilities to measure all of these frequencies and averaging them out. So we often hear of individuals that have phones with apps to measure sound, and they can be indicators, but they do not meet the requirements necessary to actually document violations. And one thing to note is just because noise can be heard, it doesn't mean it's a violation, and it doesn't mean that it's out of compliance. It has to be documented through the meter as an actual violation. And just for reference, the other chart shows some comparative examples of common sounds. For example, commercial lawn equipment may produce, approximately 70 dBAs at about 100 feet away. And of course, most people have an expectation of low to no noise during sleeping hours, which obviously you might imagine is where most of the complaints we receive are generated from. Next slide, please. So the typical sources that we regulate, the most common one is definitely the bars and restaurants. And they're often located in strip malls near residential communities. That's without a doubt, I think, our most common source that we hear from. There's other outdoor venues and pool pumps and occasionally industrial sources, but I think the bars kind of dominate. And this is very important, is the list of exemptions. There are many exemptions to our rule. Number one is residences and related activities. So the complaint from one neighbor about playing their neighbor playing the radio too loud, that's not something we can regulate. That is a law enforcement issue. Mobile sources are exempt. That includes planes, trucks, trains, airboats, etc. Churches and places of worship, animal noises, daytime construction, emergency sirens, school-related activities, and shooting ranges are among the exempt activities. Also, it seems to have been more popular lately is the preemption due to agritourism and some of the agricultural limits we have. So if an operation qualifies as a bona fide farming operation, its related activities, it limits our enforcement of the local rules. And it has become more common recently, specifically with some of the wedding and event venues, festival events, some of the wineries, and et cetera. Now, I will note that although we have a list of exempt sources, we often reach out, even when we receive these complaints, to inform them that we have received them and to try to mediate a resolution, voluntarily. And this mediation can include relocation or redirection of sources, installation of barriers, preferably right near the source of the noise, installation and insulation of double doors at a club, for example, reduction in operating hours, installation of limiters on sound systems. We offer various ideas for them to consider. And oftentimes the results come just from a better explanation and understanding of the rules. And some individuals, groups like the churches are usually fairly responsive because, once we inform them that there's been complaints, they're more amenable to resolving the issue. It's just we run into some businesses that are not such. Next slide, please. So as noted, our rule requires documentation of noise levels, and this starts with a very trained and dedicated staff. And as you may notice in the photos on the right, monitoring is often late night, especially when dealing with the bars. It's not uncommon for us to be out when the bars are closing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's difficult acquiring this data. The monitoring sessions utilize expensive specialized monitors which are periodically calibrated to ensure we meet the required accuracy. And it's also important that we maintain consistency, so we employ a well-defined standard operating procedure for data acquisition in the field and retrieval. which includes the downloading, validating, and analyzing of the data from the meter following a monitoring session. So it can be rather complex. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, some of the resolutions, and it's important to note that we must document a violation. We often, receive a complaint, it was really loud Friday night, but that doesn't mean there's a violation because we don't have evidence on our meter. So that's where it becomes the cat and mouse game of trying to get out and document a violation. But the first steps, once we do substantiate a violation, is that we typically issue a warning notice and pursue corrective action timely. If there's repeated violations or a failure to take action, then we may move it up to enforcement and ultimately to litigation if the source refuses to take sufficient actions. But it should be noted this is often an extended process, especially when dealing with noise cases on certain businesses. We typically work closely with the source to find a resolution on noise-related issues and allow the facility to work out a corrective action plan. However, the corrective actions should be made in a timely fashion, and a facility should be taking all reasonable precautions to mitigate noise-generating activities. Finally, it should be noted, as I mentioned earlier, that we are not first responders when it comes to noise issues, as we have to schedule monitoring to document readings. So citizens seeking immediate response should contact local law enforcement for relief. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So this leads to an overview of the other local regulations regarding noise concerns and how EPC's rule interacts. EPC has concurrent jurisdiction with Hillsborough County and the municipalities, which means that the local noise ordinances established in those areas can also be enforced. This is especially significant for some of those areas exempted from EPC's noise rule and provides for a more immediate response to address noise issues. Typically, the requirements are enforced by local law enforcement, and citations are based on the perception of the officer. And this goes back to what I mentioned previously. Next slide, please. So here is a list of a very brief list of the ordinances for each of the municipalities in Hillsborough County. And you can see that most of the prohibitions are for disturbances or unreasonably loud or raucous noise. So it's up to the responding officers to determine if they believe they are in violation or violating the general intent of these statements and creating a nuisance. So again, it's the perception of the officer. Also, all of the ordinances include exemptions and exceptions. So it's important that the appropriate rule is reviewed to ensure its applicability in a given part of the county. And the City of Tampa ordinance is somewhat unique in that it also creates specific limits in 3 districts, Ybor Historic, Channel District, and Arena District, that are based on defined decibel limits from the source property line. An example might be where the City of Tampa law enforcement are out with meters in Ybor City. And by rule, the city regulates these districts without EPC's involvement. All other areas of the city are enforced based on a perception of the officers at the scene similar to the other jurisdictions. And lastly, the City of Tampa has been looking at possible changes to their ordinance in recent months, and they are continuing to evaluate that currently. So next slide. With that concludes the overview and hopefully provided some clarity on the applicability and how how the rules interact with one another. And I'm open for any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. That was a very informative presentation, and it's very interesting to really dive into all the different layers of regulation in the municipalities as well as the EPC ordinance, and understand the many exemptions that we have and how they're enforced, but whether it's decibel level or perception. So thank you very much. I know this is an issue of concern to our constituents that we have to deal with quite a bit, and I appreciate that informative presentation. I myself am going to save that for future use, so I appreciate you sending that presentation along. Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
I noticed that some of the ordinances have an exemption for noise that comes from mobile sources. And I know that it's a really big problem in certain areas, the excessive noise that comes from people blaring things out of their cars. So how do we go about enforcing that? Because that's sort of a tougher problem given that they're moving around.
Yeah, that would be definitely one of the more difficult challenges. I agree with you completely. From our rule, we would be limited to not, being able to enforce, and it's so hard with something that moves like that to be able to put a limitation on it. I would say from the municipality level, it would be a matter of evaluating the potential for adding an ordinance specific to mobile sources that somebody that could more real-time respond, possibly, again, law enforcement or staff that was, able to respond right away, that could potentially, enforce that rule.
So really because of the unique nature of these mobile noises, people really have to call law enforcement with that problem. And I guess the functional problem is that by the time law enforcement gets there, the noise has gone somewhere else. But I'll tell you, we get a lot of complaints about that, and it's something that it eludes an easy solution. But I sympathize with people that are bothered by that and trying to see what we can do to help them.
Commissioner, I would just add there, I haven't reviewed the statute in a while, but there was a state statute regulating car, speaker noise, and you would have to call law enforcement as opposed to your local governments. If it's changed, I'll let you know. I'll reach out to you.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing any hands on the online portion either, but I just want to check with Commissioner Hagan since this was brought forward because you were especially interested. Is there anything you wanted to ask while we're on this topic or comment? And hearing none there, let me ask one last question. This is kind of a tangent, but in addition to noise, sometimes construction in a residential area can cause vibration, whether that's the DOT working on highways or whether it's currently the city of Tampa is tearing up some parking lot in a neighborhood that is causing vibration which can be very concerning in the older homes when your thin single pane windows are rattling for hours at a time. Are you aware? I know this is not the noise issue, but it comes along with a lot of noise, and I just wonder if you're aware of any regulations or where citizens should go with complaints of that nature.
Yeah, we don't regulate vibrations directly. Unfortunately, I'll have to get back with you on that. I believe there was a local. I think Reggie Sanford could weigh in. There was a local rule related to vibrations. I do know that when we've interacted on occasion where we've heard those complaints, that I do get the feeling that DOT and those businesses are conscious of the hours and they try to do that during the day where possible. And if it was at night, that's one of the things we would try to mediate out, is to say, can you focus on the daytime? But maybe Reggie would like to weigh in on the vibration question.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner. Reggie Sanford, EPC staff. Also, Jeff is correct, and you are correct. We don't regulate construction noise. In fact, it is exempt during the daytime hours. If it were to occur at night, we would, try and regulate it. It is a difficult thing. But specific to your question concerning vibration, I recall at one point seeing a muni code, a municipal code for Hillsborough County that actually had a vibration standard in it. I'm assuming it's still there, but the office to ask and get a direct response would definitely be Hillsborough County Code Enforcement. I think if it's still there, they would probably be the ones that would regulate vibration. But like Jeff said, from our perspective, we don't regulate vibration.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And seeing no other questions or comments, we'll go to our next presentation on the Clean Air Fair recap. I'm smiling while I say that because I was there and it was amazing. It was so fun. Commissioner Myers is nodding her head and smiling as well. Janet, or Ms. Lorton, take us through that, please.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up Deanna Lee to give a brief presentation, and it was a wonderful event. Obviously, with the pandemic, we hadn't done it, but we had done it, for decades. That's been a very successful event that we put on. So I'll let Deanna Lee walk us through that.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Commissioners. Diana Lee, EPC staff. I am here to talk to you about Clean Air Fair. If HTB can please start the presentation. Thank you. This spring, EPC has been involved in many public outreach events. One of the main events that we recently hosted was the Clean Air Fair. Next slide, please. EPC once again was pleased to celebrate the month of May as Clean Air Month. On Thursday, May 5th, after a 2-year hiatus, EPC sponsored the Clean Air Fair at Poe Plaza in downtown Tampa. This year's theme was Celebrate Clean Air. Next slide, please. Over 50 exhibitors participated at this year's Clean Air Fair. The exhibitors included environmental civil groups, transportation organizations, businesses, industry, solar advocates, alternative fuel vehicles, and many others. Next slide. We estimate that over 1,000 visitors attended this event. Free tree saplings were given out to the public in commemoration of Arbor Day. The fair was also attended by several elected officials, which added to the event's success. Commissioner Gwen Myers joined us along with Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department Environmental Task Force. Next slide. Also in attendance were our EPC Chair, Mariela Smith, and U.S. Representative Kathy Castor. They addressed the Clean Air Fair attendees and stressed the importance of clean air to the vitality and the good health of our communities. They also visited with the exhibitors and attendees. Next slide. The event included live music, which was performed by Backwater Zone, with one of the main musicians being EPC's own, Ron Nichols, who recently retired from the agency. Next slide. The annual photography contest for high school students was once again a highlight of the fair, and the students tailored their submittals around this year's theme, Clean Air Fair, Celebrate Clean Air. 61 photos were submitted for this contest. The winners and honorable mentions represented 4 different high schools: Blake, Wharton, Gaither, and Armwood. In this photo, we have a group of the students that participated in the photography contest, and I believe that they had a lot of fun while they were at the fair. Next slide. For the photo contest, we had 2 first-place winners, Caitlin Adams from Armwood High School with the Clean Air Trinity, and Ava Whalen from Gaither High School with the Morning Reflection. Next slide. Also, we had as the second-place winner, Ellie Lopez Miralles from Blake High School with a walk through the park, and 2 third-place winners, also from Blake High School, Ella Ousley with walking and Morgan Collins with Mother Nature. All of the high school students did a wonderful job in showcasing their art. Next slide, please. The Clean Air Fair also included the photo booth where the public had fun having their pictures taken at the event. Next slide. Here we have more pictures from the photo booth, which was pretty popular. Next slide, please. This event was covered by Hillsborough County's HTV, who produced a short video highlighting the event. And we want to play this video at this time to better illustrate the atmosphere of this year's Clean Air Fair. Christian, can you please play the video?
Please stand by.
Oh. Well,
And it's an event that we've held 20 years in a row. So that, do everything that we can to maintain good air quality and also have sustainable rights. Hillsborough County has over 1.5 million people. Our goal is to make the event integrated so that no matter what age you are, you can come down and get information about, what it takes to maintain good air quality. And in a sense, we do target the younger people because if you think about it, the young people today are our future leaders of tomorrow.
It's really important that we all come together and celebrate our clean air that has been achieved from all our partners working together, our industrial partners, our EPC regulating agencies, as well as our citizens. And so we celebrate that, and at the same time, we inform the public about what they can do to keep that momentum going and keep our air clean. It's great. We have over 50 exhibitors here today. We have free refreshments and prizes and music, and it's a very fun event that we can all come together and learn about our natural resources and our local resources that come together to protect our environment.
Yeah, there's something that everyone can do. And right now, you can lower your electric bills. Just be sure you're turning off the lights when you don't need them. Turn up the AC when you leave the house. Be careful how you drive. Drive safely. Take the bus, bike, walk when you can. We all have a part to play in cleaning up the air and lowering your electric bills. The Clean Air Fair is fantastic. Thanks to everybody for being out here and keeping Hillsborough County special.
The Environmental Protection Commission is a special agency. We have waste, water, wetlands, and air, and so we do protection of all those major resources. We're special in that we collaborate with industries to clean our air, and we work with other industries to help our water. So we've had the best water quality we've had in 5 decades. Our air quality has improved year after year, decade after decade, and it's because of EPC's regulatory and collaborative approach.
Everybody makes a difference. They're, just do their part and trying to, promote good, clean air, good environment, good living. It is worth it to make the sacrifices and anything that we can do to promote a better, healthy, and safe environment.
We want to thank Leanna Lopez and Kevin Hogue and the HTV staff for putting together this great video. Christian, can we go to the next slide, please? The success of this event is due to the generosity of our contributors and the community. This year, we received a variety of tickets to various local attractions along with grocery gift cards, which were donated as raffle prize giveaways. Also, we want to thank Publix Greenwise for bringing delicious sandwiches. This event will not be complete without the support of Tampa City Center, who allows us to host this event in their plaza, and the Tampa Downtown Hilton, who graciously provided us with tables and chairs for all of our exhibitors at the event. Through the generosity of our many sponsors, we were able to educate the public and at the same time feed and entertain them. Next slide. And lastly, we thank all of the EPC staff who helped make the Clean Air Fair, once again, such a successful event. Next slide. Next slide, please. In summary, we would like to again express how thrilled we were with the success of this year's event, and we look forward to having you join us next year. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Microsoft. Thank you, Deanna. That was a great presentation, and thanks to all staff and our sponsors who helped us with the Clean Air Fair. I sent an article yesterday that said 1 in 6 individuals in the world is killed worldwide. That's 9 million people annually, and 3/4 of that are due to harmful air. Luckily here, we've done a good job in keeping our air quality good, and that also helps the bay quality, with the exception of when we have alga blooms. But our water quality, with the exception of Tampa Bay and alga blooms last year, has been some of the best it's ever been. So thanks again, air staff. Great event. We'll do it again next year. It's usually the first week in May. And so this year it happened to be on Cinco de Mayo, but look for us to have clean air fair next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Is there anything else in your executive director's report?
I have a few quick slides to go through, so and then we will conclude our meeting. If HTV could bring up my slides, please. There we go. Next slide, please. There's Tom Ash's picture. Commissioners, Brenda Mallory, who is chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Congresswoman Kathy Castor, and Commissioner Gwen Myers organized a tour, and EPC took them on a tour of air quality monitoring stations of interest, as well as several brownfield redevelopment sites in Tampa. The site visits were followed by a roundtable discussion with community advocates and local government entities to discuss local issues relating to the protection of the environment and public health concerns in Hillsborough County. And that was mostly focused on the bay and the water quality in the bay. And I wanted to thank Commissioner Myers for including me in not only the touring, but also the roundtable discussion as well. Thank you. Staff did an excellent job preparing for this high-profile visit. If you ever get a chance to Google Brenda Mallory, her resume is extremely impressive. What a wonderful, genuine, smart individual. I really enjoyed meeting her. But I want to thank Air Director Reggie Sanford. He gave the air briefing. And I also wanted to thank Allison Amram. And Jason Waters did the air monitoring stations, and Allison Amram did the brownfield. So thank you so much. Next slide, please. EPC staff, Commissioner Pat Kemp, Marcia Mejia, who is the District Director of the U.S. House of Representatives, and community leaders and solar homeowners joined the Solar United Neighbors to announce the launch of the Hillsborough 2022 Solar Co-op at a media event hosted at Sweetwater Organic Community Farm. I'd like to say I have solar on my house. I was part of the second co-op. This is maybe our fourth or fifth. The return on investment is amazing. You get a big tax credit, and you're doing your little piece to help the planet. So Commissioner Kemp also presented a special commendation to Julia Herbst with the Solar United Neighbors at this event to commemorate the organization's 5th Hillsborough County Solar Co-op. The commendation recognized the not-for-profit organization for its instrumental role in helping educate interested homeowners and small business owners about going solar for expanding environmentally friendly and affordable rooftop solar in Hillsborough County. Anyone who is interested in getting rooftop solar, you can join the Solar Co-op by visiting www.solarunitedneighbors.com for details. It's free to join, and there's no obligation to purchase. And so I would recommend that. And I have to tell you, this was a big celebration because the day before, the governor had vetoed the net metering bill. And we were all very proud of that decision and very happy for that decision. It makes sense to continue with rooftop solar and net metering. Next slide, please. A special thank you goes out to Kelly Boatwright, Southwest District Director of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and former EPC alumnus for inviting EPC to participate in their annual open house. The open house is always a great opportunity for EPC staff to share about our services we provide with colleagues, environmental professionals, and members of the public. I'd like to thank Nicole Garcia, Alyn Watson, Allison Amran, and Cindy Zhang Torres for helping be the educators at this event. Next slide, please. EPC staff spent an extended Arbor Day with nearly 100 Terrace Community middle schoolers. The day started with a special ceremony indoors, followed by a tree planting in front of the school. I wish to thank Principal Tavia Shaw and Mr. Dan Oswald for partnering with us in planting of this beautiful mulberry tree on their campus. And a shout out to Ed Kopic and Jeff Sims. We got there and the nursery had not planted the tree, and we actually had to use pickaxes to break through the dirt. It had some construction material in there, so thank you, Ed and Jeff. Next slide, please. Following the tree planting, the students were bused to the Roger P. Stewart Center to participate with our engineers and scientists for our first ever EPC Expo. They learned about the work each division does to protect our natural resource and how STEM is part of EPC's everyday operations. The students were well behaved and engaged, and staff thoroughly enjoyed working with them. A shout out to Laura Woodard, EPC Engineering Committee, for organizing the Expo demonstrations, and for all the staff and volunteers. It was a great success. Next slide, please. EPC also participated in a variety of Earth Day events, including Nature's Classroom Open House and EcoFest. We were also joined by Commissioner Harry Cohen for the Great Port Cleanup at McKay Bay, and Commissioner Mariella Smith for the kickoff of the county's Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge. And in front of you, you have a newspaper article will be in that 100 Conservation Challenge handout that you have on EPC's Airfest, and you have some wildflower seeds that you can plant over the summer. Although not pictured, I wish to give out a shout out to Kirsty Martinez, who volunteered to make a presentation to a class of second graders at North Tampa Christian Academy on very short notice. Additionally, I served as a moderator during the 40th Annual Agritech Trade Show and Seminars, the event hosted by Florida Agritech by the Florida Strawberry Growers Association, helps local growers and industry representatives stay up to date on the latest industry research and information. And last week I spoke before the Florida Tax Watch Citizen Institute. Governor Martinez was there. It's a group that educates upcoming emerging leaders. I spoke on regional and state permitting and expanding a business's footprint. The primary goal of the Citizens Institute is to train the next generation of business and community leaders by connecting them with influential policy leaders and business executives to learn firsthand how state and local government policies impact their communities and businesses. And I had two fishermen in the crowd, and they had lots of questions. Next slide. The virtual Wetlands Series tour for American Wetlands Month continues through the end of May. Next Wednesday, we will present the last of our tour series featuring the salt marsh and mangrove wetlands of the Upper Tampa Bay Park. Members of the public can check our website and social media accounts for details. Next slide. EPC will be participating as an exhibitor for the 17th Annual Hillsborough County Neighborhoods Expo to be held virtually on May 21st. Our EPC virtual booth has a comprehensive array of brochures, information, and videos for visitors to explore and download to learn more about our agency. We look forward to interacting with neighborhood leaders and county residents on the day of that event. Next slide, please. And with that, that concludes our meeting, unless you commissioners have any questions.
Thank you. And
or future events. I'm sorry.
Right.
Future
Yep. I'll just check for any new business, old business, future events. I did, unfortunately, I'm sorry, neglect to read into the record Commissioner Kemp's memo explaining that she would be unable to attend today because of a scheduling conflict. So I just want to advise the board that was provided to me, but I neglected to read it at the roll call portion. And with that, we can conclude our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a great day.